I'm ready when you
Okay. All right. Well, hey, we'll get started. First off, I just want to say thanks to all of you for still being here at the last session. It's just amazing to see people that are so eager to learn about track and field that they're staying until the very end. And I think you're in for a treat because Mike Caton here, he presented yesterday, and it was just a phenomenal presentation. I learned so much. I thought it was really interesting. He had some great views on things. So Mike has taught or coached at many different levels. He's coached at the middle school, high school, collegiate level. He's coached club. He also has come up with his ACE method of coaching that he'll talk a little bit about today, I'm sure. And he currently is an internet coach. So he coaches primarily through the internet. And I believe you live in Indiana, you said right now?
Yeah.
Okay, Indiana. So with that, I will turn it over to Mike. And thanks very much.
Thank you. Before I get started, is there any one of you who haven't been to any of my other 4 that I've taught at this? So everybody's seen? Okay. You said this once at the first session in the general room, is usually when I present, it's usually about hurdling. But Johnny said, hey, do you do anything else? And I said, sure. I mean, I've coached lots of things I can do. And I threw out a couple of titles. And he said, yeah, do both of those too. And as I put them together, this sort of morphed into something different. And then yesterday, the first session, which was about how to plan your season for success. Was anybody in that one? Okay. That kind of took an interesting, what I felt like what people were interested in talking about, training philosophies and stuff. And I quickly went over some stuff, and I thought, I'm going to work that into this one. Okay, so I actually made some slides. It's funny, I was talking to my wife this morning, who, it's not that I do these all the time. I started doing some last year, and I did Illinois last week and this weekend. I enjoy doing these, but I always thought it's fun to pull my wife along. Let's turn it into a weekend or something. I said, so good thing you didn't come on this trip, because I have been working the entire, when I'm not talking, I'm in my room building the slides, to tweak them, what I think I need to do, especially because I'm doing 2 things that I've never taught before, and this being one of them. So that, along with the fact that this is my 5th class, we'll be curious to see how this goes. But I do want to show you my YouTube channel just for the point of showing you that I have a small playlist here called Track Coaching, where it's got some stuff that I'm talking about today. So just know that if any things you want to learn more of, you can go back in and get some things there. In fact, at some point, I'm going to show a training philosophy, what I like my workouts to be like. And one of these, you can get it's like a sample, like a preseason or off-season workout, or one of them even talks about, sorry, I make these videos and I forget what I made. But one of them actually shows you like samples of what they're like middle season, preseason, early season, mid-season, late season. So you can see some ideas, and I'm going to talk through that. So just know that you can learn more. Okay. Now I'm ready to go into this. Okay. So I apologize for those of you who have already heard this stuff a few times, but for the few people who are new here, just to be clear about who I am and who I'm not, I was a longtime high school coach, but I've done it all. Like you said, middle school, high school mostly. Even did a couple of seasons collegiately, but that was working specifically with hurdlers. But when I did high school coaching, I was the head coach of 3A. It was a private school, 3A, so mid-tier in Colorado. They have 5 divisions in Colorado, so we were in the middle level, and I was on our school, being a private school, as the economy changed, it got smaller and smaller and smaller. So we had less and less kids pretty much every year. But we were always very feisty, competitive team. And Even though we never won a state championship, we were always up there, one of the better teams. We always won certain things. We were always in the finals, winning the hurdles. 4x4, we were like the 4x4 team. I mean, if we didn't win the 4x4 that year, we were certainly fighting to win. That's just the way we were. And this is a picture of my team cheering on the 4x4. This is just some of my better 800-meter runners and just different runners I had over the years. Like I said, we were really, really good at the hurdles. That's not what we're talking about. So anyway, ACE method coaching came about because as I was having a lot of success with the hurdles and other coaches were asking me questions, at some point through the course of that, I realized, wow, I got something that I should share. And I started making videos, and I created a website, and just through a couple of years of just figuring out what people want, I've settled into this place. You know, it's called ACE Method Coaching. It stands for Analyze, Correct, and Empower. And it was originally just hurdling, but now I brought on another coach who does similar with me for high jump. I work with the runners also, and I also have some things for coaching. This is my YouTube channel I just showed you. So overall, between my different social media, I have over 30,000 followers now, and I never imagined that. I just thought, look, I got something I want to share just in case anybody's interested in it, and it just keeps growing and growing. And it worked great for me, but what's really cool is how well these things have worked for other coaches too. In fact, the things they tell me blow me away. Like I'm thinking, wow, it's phenomenal. So these systems make sense, and they're all tried and true, and it's not only about hurdling. So today, I'm going to talk about, it's sort of morphed a little bit, like I said. We are going to talk a little bit about a philosophy that would go over your whole season, because it's hard to only talk about a perfect practice without seeing how it fits into the big picture, right? So we're going to look at a week at a glance, the order of practice, a season at a glance. You know what, forget that. Okay, we're going to go right into some big learnings, okay? And what I mean by that, in case, okay, I think I said this my first session yesterday. They all sort of mix in after a while. But here's something that I learned early on, because let me explain this. I took over this high school team. I came in, and obviously they'd been a program for years, and I was excited about it. I'd never coached at that point. I was new to track coaching at a school level. Everything I'd done prior to that was performance coaching. People would come to me individually, like personal training, but mostly focusing with athletes of all different types, trying to figure out how to make them better at their sport, which fit in perfectly with my education, because I have both a degree in physical education and a master's in sports sciences, so that's what it was all about. And at some point I changed careers and became a high school teacher and a coach, and then loved it, and then quickly became a high school head coach. And walking into that program the first year, and the school had a reputation for being a good sports school. And I was new to Colorado Springs, so I didn't know a lot, but I was nervous as heck. Seriously, I really thought I was going to come into this situation, and all these athletes were going to be great, and I was nervous that would I be, good enough to coach them and stuff like that. And what you find out really quickly is these are just high school kids. They're just teenagers, and I was actually disappointed. I didn't walk into a group of seasoned athletes who good discipline and ethic and at all. In fact, it was disappointing. I thought they were lazy. I definitely thought they were wimpy, like marshmallows, and they just afraid to race, never wanted to do the 4x4, that kind of thing, right? I thought, this is not at all what I thought I was getting into. Very disappointing. But I didn't want to quit, because I thought, at some point I started realizing this is my thing. This is what I was made to do. I can't quit. So I just changed it. I'm not going to go into this a lot, but I did put some rules together started saying, this is the way we're going to be. If you want to be on this team, these are the standards. This is the way we're going to do it. And then things turned around really well. I had to be a hard ass for 1 year because people, and some people quit. Not a lot. Mostly they reluctantly started working harder. We had a really good season. And then it just got better and better and better. And it got easier and easier because I didn't have to be tough anymore. My juniors and seniors had been with me 2 years then. They all knew the expectation, so they set the tone. I could be the good guy, and it was a culture built. But also, one thing that was really, really key, and this is what I'm getting ready to talk about, are these things here, is a lot of it had to do with injuries, and so many injuries, and I could not figure out how to fix it, especially the shin splints, right? And kids always, coach, this is tight, this hurts, and we're always sending them to the trainer or what have you. You guys know what I'm talking about. And I'm just thinking, I don't remember it being like this when I was a kid, which probably wasn't, because if you look at it statistically, especially if you're my age, we were a lot tougher and faster back then because we weren't soft, right? So these kids are soft, so they get hurt very easily. So every year, trying new things and not working out, and I mean just going crazy with this stuff, trying to figure it out. Around the same time in my development as a coach, 3 things that I learned and put them together at the same time, and then everything changed. Meaning the injuries, for the most part, went away. I can't say we were injury-free, but what went from almost everybody, and it seemed like a group of the Walking Dead, to hardly anybody from one season to the next, because we made some changes. And I'm going to incorporate that into, plus I am going to, trust me, I am going to talk about what a day looks like, but I need to, again, it's hard to do that without knowing the big picture of things. So, the first thing that we started doing, or stopped doing, was stretching. I learned about this concept of muscle activation. I'm not going to go into it too much, but just know that it's pivotal in my philosophy as a coach. We don't do stretching, and if the kids are going to stretch, it's after practice, not before practice. I'll go into it, because when you stretch a muscle, it makes it kind of relaxed, and it's not ready to fire on demand, and so it makes your joints unstable. So we stopped doing that. So we go through range of motion. We do a dynamic warm-up the way people do, but we don't have any stretching as part of that. And the movements are slow and controlled so that we're not building momentum and swinging legs and things like that. So we just build, and we have other ways of teaching your body to relax that are not stretching, okay? Moving on, I'll come back, I'll touch on that a little while. The other thing is my sprinters. That includes my jumpers, my hurdlers. We would only be on the track doing this twice a week, not counting a meet. So we would probably only have three times in a week maximum that my kids would be sprinting. So in case you're wondering, because I know people here race twice a week, which I never would have my kids race, or rarely race twice a week. But if they did, that would be their 2 touches, and then only once can they practice in addition to that, right? Because what I found is it's the frequency of the fast running that was causing a lot of the injuries, along with the stretching. So when we went to just, really hard on Monday, take Tuesday off, and by off, we were looking at film, we were doing mobility drills, we were in the weight room working on strength and power, but no pounding on the ground, okay? And then they were better by Wednesday, and I could pound them on the track again and just repeat that. It worked so much better, and it was an absolute game changer. And then the third is, this actually didn't start out in track. And this is the part that I wasn't coming in here to talk about, but it came up on yesterday, and it seemed so important, and people were really gravitated toward it, so I'm going to talk about it. In the mix of this, I was also coaching cross country. And to know my school, a lot of you could probably relate, because I've spoken to a lot of coaches here, and everybody, very similar stories. So I'm at this school. It's a private school. It's not big to begin with. Plus, these are all kids with money. So they're all in club sports. So all the girls were in volleyball. Pretty much any girl that was half an athlete was in volleyball or soccer, and all the boys were either basketball or soccer. So getting a kid to come out for track was really hard, and I went with the leftovers. Can anybody relate to me? Okay, so I'm just getting the less athletic kids for the most part. And so I will tell you this, I was an 8th grade science teacher, and I was recruiting the heck out of these middle school kids to race for me when they got into high school. And I would, everything that I could do, if they looked fast or whatever, I'd hear whatever, I would talk to them. Didn't always work, but I had this thing that I did every year, because we did physical science. And so I always had this lab where we were talking about speed, and I'm showing them that speed is distance divided by time, right? So I would take them into the hallway, and we would run a 30-meter dash now with time them all, right? So I'm finding out who's fast.
This is in science.
Yeah.
Okay.
No, you'll see what I'm getting to. So I'm finding, everybody writes down their time, and they get the formula, distance divided by time equals speed in miles per hour, and they would figure this out. Okay, here's my speed. And then I would show them videos from the Olympics, starting at the 100 meters. We watched, and I'm introducing them to my sport that they knew nothing about. So they're watching the 100 meters, and they're watching the 200 meters. In each race, we would find the time, we would take the distance, and we would calculate their speed, distance divided by time. And then at the beginning, they had to predict. I would say, if you were to predict your speed when you're sprinting your fastest, how does that equate to Olympians? I mean, obviously, you know you're not as fast as the sprinters, but maybe the people running the 400 or the 800 or the 1500, you think you're running as fast as the speed that they're running? And they would predict, so we have prediction built into there. You guys, teachers, understand where I'm coming with this. And then we would graph everything, and come to find out, they would find out that their speed sprinting 30 meters would equate to like the 10,000 meter runners in the Olympics. That's how fast Olympians are. And so there was a lot of science in there, but it was also introducing them to the sport of track and field, but it was also having me identify who runners are, and then having the rest of the year to talk them into coming in. And I gradually built this program up, and we became what we did. But anyway, where am I going with this? Lyle Knudsen. So at one point, I'm also doing cross country. And we were not a good cross country team. Not on the girls' side. We have always had good boys, but not good girls. And this year in particular, wimpy girls, and one of my assistant coaches was flipping through a magazine, and she finds this article in the back of Runner's World or some Runner's magazine about this PhD, happened to be in Colorado where we were. He had done the University of Colorado or something, and his name is Lyle Knudsen, and he has these crazy thoughts about training. And she showed it to me. I said, "Oh, that seems crazy. These kids aren't running enough. It was just too much speed-based training and everything." But she called him up, made an appointment, and met him, and bought a system from him, everything. And I said, "What the heck? I mean, I'll try it." So I implemented it into cross-country season, and I could not believe how well it worked. Even though it's cross-country, and the longest they were ever running was like a 800-meter repeat. It was just repeats, and these girls became tough. And I'm seeing them do repeats and bend over and running hard again, and they were never like that before. They became like aggressive, and I thought, I wonder how this would apply to track and field. And so I bought his system, and sad stories, I don't have it anymore, but I took it, and it didn't work. It didn't work perfectly into a high school season, right? So I had to do a lot of work of taking the concepts and making it fit with high schoolers and paring it down, and we got meets every week and da-da-da. And I built this thing, and so I had the workouts for the 100, 200, 400, all the way up, and it just helped my kids so much. And that's part of the reason why we were always at great 400, 800 meter runners, the whole gamut, because they were just tough as nails, and it worked. I am going to talk a little bit about that today. So these are just some things that I learned along the way that hopefully they might impact you a little bit, and maybe you already knew some of this stuff, but maybe it's some new stuff for you. Okay.
Can I ask you a quick question?
Mm-hmm.
You know, a lot of our small schools here, football coach and track coach and all this, when you run football, usually you run sprints every day, except for the day before. Is that counterproductive too, you think? Or, you know, football's a lot of plays where you're doing a quick sprint and then you got your
Yeah, I would mix it up a lot, just the way I do in track. I wouldn't have them do sprints every day. You know, I would decide, okay, these are the days that I'm focusing on real speed. These are the days I'm working more on endurance. And we might be doing like more shuttle type stuff, a little less than full speed. You know, I might even have a day where it's really short and really fast with a long rest period. Some, because working on pure top end speed. I might have another day where they're running, 100 meters. And I might have a day where it's slower, but it's a lot more continuous. Like maybe throw a soccer ball out there, play soccer or something, you know what I mean? Work on different energy systems. But I wouldn't do sprints every day, okay? Great question. So, here's a week at a glance, and I will just say right now, this is based on Saturday track meets. And you guys probably don't even have Saturday track meets, and that's okay. In fact, now that I'm thinking about it, I should have not even put Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday. I should just say day 1, day 2, day 3. So you just figure out where your meet is and then work backwards from there, right? So, one day a week you're at the track, the next day you're in the weight room. Now, keep in mind, this is only talking about sprinters. Your distance runners are running every day, okay? But they have their hard days and their recovery days and mixing in your tempo days and everything all blended into there. But the sprinters and all your jumpers and everything, or your second day in the weight room, or something more casual, could be working on range of motion. We would even do like yoga, Pilates, things like that in addition to just the weight room. Another day at the track. I'm staying very high level at this point. I'm going to get into some workouts a little bit. Again, Thursday in the weight room. Friday, if it wasn't a big invitational where it's Friday, Saturday, we would have just a very easy, what some people call a shakeout workout. I call it the pre-meet workout. That's it. You come, we warm up, you do a jog, and you do some strides. That's it. If you're doing, you can go work on the starting blocks a few times, work on your handoffs, do your hurdle drills. That's about it. Get ready to race tomorrow. I got a prep workout, and then we would race on Saturday. Now, because we did have weeks that had 2 meets in them, and this is to me is really important. When you race a kid at a meet, and they do a really good performance, and especially if it's a PR, what that does to your body is huge. I mean, it could take 3-4 days to recover from that, right? So you wouldn't want to do that and then go super hard at the track on Monday if they still needed recovery days. So depending on your athlete, depending how they did, you might need to pull a few to the side and say, I need you guys to take a little easier. You had a really big Saturday. You did the 400 and the 4x4. You did the hurdles and the 4x4, or you did the 800 and you PR'd, then you ran the 4x4, or you did the 16 and the 32, the relay, whatever. Talk to the kid and figure it out. So just know that I'm giving you generalities, but there's an art to coaching too, and you knowing your kids and knowing how to adjust for each of them. Which I need to come back to one more thing. But you might need to adjust things. But I was wanting, somebody remind me to talk about invigorated, and then I'll come back to that. So somewhere in here you might have another meeting. Like we had small school meets, which a lot of the smaller schools in the Colorado Springs would just jointly get together and have this unofficial league. It was just really a way for us to have our own meets without being clobbered by the big schools, which didn't apply to us. We could compete with the big schools, but a lot of schools couldn't. A lot of the small schools couldn't, and they didn't. So they want to have their own small school meets. So that would either be a Tuesday or a Wednesday. So what I did is I just brought my JV type kids, and that's where they raced, and my better kids were racing on the big meets. Or let's say my 4x1 really needed to work on their handoffs. I put them in that meet, but only for that one thing. Or, or I just want to get clever and I wanted somebody more conditioning. I might get a hurdler and put them in the 400 or the 800 just to get a good hard workout. But those kids would also finish their race and then go off the track to the field, soccer field, and do a workout, right? So it wasn't a throwaway. So you have to get clever, you have to get creative, and you guys know it's tough. I think it's tough to be a high school coach, and especially when your school has all these other demands, like, oh, there's the concert, and then there's the meeting, and the kids can't, and you're like, oh my gosh, right? You got to work around all these things. But so you can map it out, but sometimes it doesn't work the way you want it to work. But this is overall the way we would approach most weeks. Now, this might be really basic, really fundamental, but for most of you. But overall, the practice is this. If you think about it from an order of practice, you come in and you warm up, and then things split out from there. Kids that are going to do specialty events, hurdling, jumping, whatever, go do those events first while they're fresh, because it's technical, and part of what you're doing is you're working on your nervous system, your brain connected to your muscle to learn how to do very precise movements and hurdling and jumping and throwing. So you wouldn't want to be fatigued when you do that. So you do that first. The kids that don't do any specialty events, say your distance runners or whatever, or if they only do sprints, or you could, for example, if you had some sprinters who were on the relay team, they could go work on handoffs then while they're fresh. Don't do them after they've been conditioning, right? Because if they're conditioning and they're slow, and then they're practicing handoffs and none of them are moving full speed because they're fatigued, the handoffs aren't going to be ready, right? So think about specialty events. Kids who don't do any of that go right in their conditioning, they're just going to do more of it. When those kids finish, ideally they come in and they join them for the second part of the workout, because all jumpers and hurdlers or sprinters, they need to sprint with them, plus they need the conditioning. So they would join them for the second half. I will tell you, just throw this out, if it works for you, being the head coach and the hurdle coach at my school, I could do these things, and some head coaches might not want to, but I had my hurdlers show up 30 minutes ahead of everybody else. So it all worked out perfectly. They'd go through their warm-up and everything, and by the time they were finished, they would join, and they would pretty much finish the second half of this workout with everybody, which worked out perfectly since they'd already been sprinting over hurdles. That's some running. They only do half of the rest of the workout. Then I like to bring the team together to do some core stuff, maybe some like core strength stuff, or maybe your whatever, depending on how you're doing it, and then your cool down. I personally like, and I know that a lot of what I'm telling you here is probably old hat for some of you, but just in case it's not. I always found this to be a good opportunity to let my students lead, and I had very little to do with the core work. My upperclassmen were leading everybody through the toughest core work that they could and having a good time hurting them. And that was their thing. That's build leadership. And then I put a question mark here because every track team's got a lot of business to talk about. This is what we're doing this week. This is for uniforms, paying money, collect money, whatever, pasta party, whatever. At some point, you got to talk about your team business. I always did it at the beginning, right when everybody gathers up, get that over with, and then we'd start our warm-up. But you could, theoretically, you could do it during this part when everybody's like cooling down, stretching. Hey everybody, while you're down here, let's talk about this week, right? So you can throw it in wherever you feel like it's best for you, okay? Before I move on, does anybody want to add to this? Talk about what you're doing if you think there's another great idea or a question that you have? No? Okay. Are we getting tired? We want to get out of here? Okay. So, I am now, because it came up yesterday about this philosophy that Lyle Knudsen had. Let me just tell you the reason why I'm even having to do this. So Lyle was his PhD with a running background. And he was all about, I can't remember what his PhD, but it was all about the human body. Plus he was a mathematician. So the weird combination, he was a nerdy guy, right? And he had trained some really good runners, even up to marathon with these, and most people thought he was crazy with the way he trained. And like I said, it worked great. So I bought his stuff, and somewhere along the lines, because I've moved a lot in my life, I lost the stuff. But all it was a bound thing, you know. It was it, like typewritten on a typewriter. He's been dead for years now. And as I morphed into ACE method coaching, and I wanted this stuff, I couldn't find it anywhere. I went online, I couldn't find it online anywhere. I even tried, then I found out he was dead. I tracked down his son. I called his son and I said, "Do you have any of your dad's stuff?" He goes, "No." And I was like, man, okay. So I just took, because I had previously taken all his stuff and a lot of it was in memory, and I turned it into my stuff. So I have all that. And that's what I've given away to coaches over the years, and now I've turned it into something. But let me explain to you what it is. You have to understand this concept of over, under, and race pace, okay? Over means whatever distance is your race distance. I'm going to use 400 meters as an example. If you're a 400 meter runner, that's your race pace. 800 race pace is your over race pace. 1600 meters is your over race pace. You follow me? So your under is 200, your under is 100. Okay. So, what he would do, if you understand this concept, he didn't do that right. Okay. He worked on a 2-week cycle. In his perfect world, on day 1, your athletes would do over training. So again, I'm going to use 400 as an example. So an example might be that on Monday or day 1, they're doing repetitions at mile race pace. But they're short rest periods. They might be 400s, they might be 800s, they might be 600s. It might be an up and down ladder, step up, step down, but always at mile race pace and a lot of endurance. But all repetitions. They would never go out and run a mile. Then they have a recovery day. Then they do under. So now we're talking about 100 meter race pace. So we're talking about full speed work. Short stuff, lots of long rest periods, working on speed this day. Then a recovery day. And then an over distance day. So now they're doing 800 pace. Repeats at 800 meter pace with a little longer rest period here, but a lot shorter rest period than here. So working on different energy systems. And then a recovery day. And then Sunday they would rest. And they go through the second week and they do an under day. Yeah. Did I do this right? Yeah. Do an under, I'm sorry, that's where the 100 meter stuff is. This was 800 pace. You're following me, right? Then a recovery day, and then day 10, they're working at race pace. So they're doing repeats at their race, and I would always tell my kids, I want it to be your ideal, like your goal race pace. So if you're a 400 meter runner, and you're running 53 seconds, but I want you to run 52 seconds, I want you to be running at that pace. Now, in case you're wondering, did I give all my kids exact times? Let's say we're doing these repeats at these distances, and I tell them exactly this is what your time should be. I'm not. I am not that nerdy of a coach, right? Plus, if you see these workouts, which I'll show you, It would be so hard to do that. I basically would teach them what it should feel like. This is what it should feel like to run a fast 400. This is what, and I could look at you and I could tell, because I've coached long enough, you need to speed up, you need to slow down, whatever. And so that's what they would do. So they'd be running at that pace. Then they have a recovery day, and then they have either a race or a time trial. Okay? And they repeat this every 2 weeks, all year long. Okay? Which I can talk about that too. Well, a couple of things that doesn't work for us is we don't only have races every 2 weeks like he did in college with the collegiates he worked with or the professionals he was working with. So I had to take all this and adjust it for 1 week and the second week, but I kept the 2 week cycle, so it still goes over 2 weeks. And then each of his 2 week cycles, there was different 2 week cycles that you could think of as your mesocycles. He had some that were long sprints. They all added up to the same volume of running all the time throughout the year, but there was just different intensities to them. Short intervals, as you can imagine, it's a bunch of very boring, like, you might be saying, okay, we're doing 12 50s today at 100 meter pace with a 3 minute rest between each, right? That'd be a short one. Or you could say, we're doing 100 meter sprints for your longer intervals, but we're only going to do 6 of them, and so the volume's always the same. Or you could say sets and reps. We're going to do, for this 2 week cycle, we're breaking it down so it's kind of like these, but we have a half time in between. So I tell my kids, you're staying strict on your time. When we get to the 6th one, we're going to take a 5 minute break, and then you finish the second 6. This is the kind of stuff I would do preseason with my kids, right? Or maybe, preseason. This is the kind of stuff I would do in the first week, 2 to 4 weeks of the season. Then we would have ups and downs. Ups and downs means that they start at let's say, for example, we're doing 800 meter pace repeats or 400 meter pace repeats. They would start at short ones. Let's say, for example, 50, and go 50, then 100, 150, 200, 250, 300, 350, and then work back down 300, 250, 200, right? So it's up and down. Again, if you were to add up the volume, they would all be the same, but this is a tougher workout than these, because you're having to build up, and it gets longer and longer. Downs, ups. This is you work down from long to short, and then back up to long again. Again, the same volume, it's really this workout flip-flopped, so you think it's the same workout. No, trust me, it's much harder to go down, and you're halfway through your workout, and now you gotta work back up this hill again. So it's a good thing psychologically and physically to do. And we were doing this type of thing about 2/3 into the season. And it's brutal, right? These kids are like dying, coach, when are we gonna be done? And then we would have ups, and then we would finish the season with downs. Same volume of work, but now it starts long, smaller increments, working its way down. So everyone is shorter than the one before. And it's amazing, even though it's the same volume as all these, by just tearing them down and building them up like Marines with this type of stuff, by the time they got to this, it was like, coach, this is easy. This is so easy. And the other thing that was beautiful, because this I would always time as a 2 week cycle, the 2 weeks leading into when they were going to have their championship. And here's what I mean by that. Like, I knew pretty much which kids were going to state and which kids weren't going to state. We always had a lot of kids going to state, but some didn't. If they weren't going to state, I would shift and put this one up here. So they're having their end of the season at league or whatever, and they're having a good PR and finishing their season, not going to state, but having a good PR. But these kids, it was amazing. After going through this evolution and then finishing with this, we would peak at state like I've never seen. I'm not exaggerating. I wouldn't be talking about this if I didn't know that it worked. We would peak like nobody. Like, we would run times in all of our legs in the 4x4, the 4x8, or all my open kids, like they haven't run all season, because because of going through this cycle. And it's different. It's not the same as the normal periodization. Trust me, I know that, and that's the way I coached for years. In fact, I wrote my master's thesis on periodization of track and field, so I get it. But I switched to this, and we do this all year long. But in the off season, we're doing this type of stuff. And then later in the season, we're progressively working through this stuff. And it's amazing. I honestly, I don't know why the guy didn't become famous, because it works that well. But he would probably, I wonder what he would think about me doing this. He'd probably be mad because I'm not saying it right, but hopefully he'd be excited to some degree. Okay, so anyway, back to this picture. I want to just now leave you with an ending here, and then we'll field any questions. Based on what I saw earlier, I'll be surprised if you guys have any questions. But just to know, even though this is a hurdle-specific thing, I want you guys to go back and tell your hurdle coach, if it's not you, hey, this guy, he's got this thing called a hurdle technique and drill guide. It's free on my website. What it is a spreadsheet of everything that you need to look at when you're looking at a hurdler. Like what to look for, what it should look like, what are the common mistakes that are happening, and what are the coaching cues and the drills you need to use to make them get better, okay? And the same thing I've embarrassingly had to say twice today. I discovered just this morning that this link is not initiating the automatic email that it's supposed to. So for 3 weeks since I put this on my website, because I changed it, I changed the product, and I must have not done something right, because yes, I build my website too. And I make a lot of mistakes. But these people haven't been getting this thing. So I've got to find all their emails and email them and apologize and say, here's my guide. But anyway, so give it a day or so, and then this will be on the website. But if you're interested in getting my track plan, is I put it together this summer because I was getting other track coaches other than just hurdlers who were wanting this. I built this thing, same thing I just told you. It's got every distance from 100 meters to 3,200 meters, all the workouts that you need for the entire 12-week high school season, okay? Just like I did, it's there, and it is only for $99 for a limited time. I'm gonna leave this here in case you want to snap back, but I'm here. What questions do we want to wrap up this clinic? Any questions? Yeah.
So, like when you do your down up or your up down, I suppose it depends on what pace you're going, but like what kind of volumes, like for each of those paces, would you be looking at getting in for total volume?
Well, I don't know the exact volume, like if I were to add up the meters, because it's going to be different on your over day versus your under day, dramatically different, and the rests are so much different. But on a given day, you might be doing like 11 repeats. Sometimes you're doing less. Sometimes you're doing a little bit more. So let's say anywhere from 9 to 11, 12, or 13, right? Yeah. And yes.
Different point.
Yeah.
Kind of what you started with the no stretching.
Yeah.
We started implementing that in our cross country season after I just got into it this last season. Can you give me a little more reasoning behind that? I totally respect it and I love it. I love not doing the stretching. I also love not wasting the time on the kids thinking that they need to stretch when your body needs to fire fast, right?
Yeah.
I just want if
Yeah.
you have any more
Let me-
science behind that.
Let me show you something.
And you also wanted to talk about invigorated?
Yes, thank you.
Yeah.
Okay. Another thing that I do, and this is important when we talk about giving workouts on a daily basis to athletes. I tell everybody the workout. Like I got the group there and I'm going, okay, sprinters, this is your workout today. This is your, I'm telling everybody. But everybody knows this, is that this is the middle, like, how do I say it? Like the workout that most, 80% of you are going to do, or maybe less. But you also need to think about how your body feels that day. Also know that, for example, if you're a freshman and you're trying to keep up with your hero who's a junior, you guys have different ability levels. And if the junior is doing that workout and the freshman is also doing that workout, there's no way they're both walking out of that workout feeling the same, right? So it's too hard for the freshman and maybe too easy for the junior. So I tell everybody, and this wasn't my idea, I took this from Bill Bowerman, a great legendary track coach. It's the main thing I got from him is he wanted every athlete to finish every practice feeling invigorated. And by definition, that is feeling really tired, but not exhausted. Really tired where it's like, I really don't want to do anymore, but I could do one more if I had to, but I really don't want to. Because right now I feel positive about it, not negative about it. Like I still feel up, like man, that was a good, hard, but really good workout. That's what I want everybody to feel every day. So I would have to tell them, and I have to really get into their psyche to say, look, don't try to act tough. Don't try to do this. If you're getting too tired, let me know and we'll figure out how to adjust your workout for today so you also feel invigorated and he feels invigorated, even though you didn't do the same workout. So I go in with a plan and I adjust it. Usually what I would do is adjust midway through. I would talk to people, how are you feeling? Or how are you feeling? Okay, really tired? Okay, here's how I want to change the second half of your workout. And I might, a lot of times I was saying, okay, I want you to do every other one. Right? Everybody else has 6 left, I only want you to do 3. You get to rest, you do 1, rest, or I might say, do the same thing as them, but a little shorter. I just use my, whatever made sense on the day, but usually it was like, just do every other one. That way, they got to run with everybody, but they got a longer rest. Stuff like that. Yeah.
You time your intervals?
Or sometimes the good kids would say, Coach, I got more in me. I could still be more tired. Okay, let's up it. Okay.
You time the intervals?
I didn't. And no.
Okay, because when I would time them and I record them, and then I could look at it and saying, well, they're starting to get tired because they're running slower now.
Yeah. I will tell you this, is that, everybody's got their styles of coaching. When I was back in the 100 years ago, when I was a high school coach, we were being timed everything we did. And I've had coaches that are at the finish line timing everybody. That's not the way I coach. I'm in the middle.
Yeah, but you can tell if they're sloughing them too, though.
Exactly.
If you don't time them, you don't know if they're, you know what I'm saying?
Yeah, but I want to see them in the middle, and I'm barking at them as they're running by. Move your arm, change, lip, pop up. And I'm giving them cues all the time, and I can tell. And if they're sloughing off, then I'm talking. Or I can talk to them, but I'm watching kids run by me. That's just the way I coach. Yeah. I'm not saying it's the best way. It's just the way it works. And it just suits me. Okay.
I can see that when you say that you asking, I mean, you feel tired or not. I mean, especially when you're an athlete in high school level, most of the time you're gonna say, I am tired. I don't want to do the
It's
work.
the marshmallows. You brought that
So
up earlier.
how you approach this kind of situation? I mean, and this gonna be team work. I mean, oh, he's tired, I'm tired too, and all
Well,
will work out.
That's a
goes on.
great question. And let me say this, that it comes down to team culture, right? If you build up your team the way that I did, the upperclassmen set the tone. And they're hard workers. And they hate it when freshmen were coming in being lazy. And they would complain to me about it, they would complain to the kid about it, and that kid either quit the team or they just straightened up. Usually they just straightened up and then they started working harder. And nobody wants to be embarrassed around their peers.
Yeah.
And like I said, it wasn't me. I was never telling them to do more. I was moderating, It was the upperclassmen, and everybody looked up to them. And it happened every year, every year for all the years I was there. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
So the not timing, does that kind of go along with wanting them to the athlete themselves know what that feels like?
Yeah, that's part of that. But part of it is that I'm just not that detailed. You know what I mean? I'm
Well,
not-
I always say
yeah.
effort is visible, so
Yeah.
I don't need a clock to tell me
Yeah.
this kid
It was
is.
all about feeling. Yeah.
And for the stretching, oh, sorry.
Go on. I'm into perceived exertion. Yeah.
For the stretching part that you were explaining, you don't say anything that don't stretch at the beginning. I mean,
Yeah, I'm going to show you this video.
oh, okay.
And I don't have volume here. Let me. Before we get started, make sure to like, share, and subscribe below so you can be notified whenever. This is one of my very first videos. Early in my coaching career, like a lot of coaches, I used to have my athletes stretch before practice and even during if they were tight. Then somebody showed me something that made me think that stretching might not be such a good idea. So I tried an experiment. I did let my athletes stretch, and something amazing happened. Our injuries went away. That was more than 10 years ago, and from that point on, we've never stretched that practice, never regretted it, never looked back. We have much less injuries than we used to. So today I'm going to show you what I learned. I'm going to take one of my runners, Lily, to see a muscle activation technique specialist who's going to demonstrate how bad stretching can be. You're not going to believe it. Literally, a lot of you are going to think this is fake, but I assure you it's not. Let's go.
Hi, my name is Deb Hellman, and I'm a muscle activation technique specialist. Here's what we're going to do today. I am going to test one of Lily's muscles to make sure it's functioning properly. I'm then going to have Lily stretch the muscle, and then I'm going to retest it to see what happened. Lily, I'm going to test your rectus femoris for contractile capability, which means can you fight me when I tell you the direction of my force, okay? So I'm going to be pushing straight down, and when I say resist, give me everything so that you don't let me do it, okay? Ready, and resist. Perfect. That test just confirmed that your rectus femoris muscle is a major hip flexor, and it can contract on demand, which means it's working for you. Hop on up. I'm going to have you do a stretch. Okay, Lily, what I want you to do is the typical running stretch. On your right side, I want you to grab your ankle and pull it up so that you feel a really nice stretch right in here, and hold it for about 5 seconds. Lily, let's hop back up on the table and see what that stretch did. We just did a 5-second stretch on one of your main hip flexors. Let's see what happened. Okay? Keep that knee locked. And I'm going to go straight down. You resist me when I say, and ready, and resist. Okay, let's try it again.
This is real.
Ready,
There's nothing
and
fake in there.
resist. Okay, you've got nothing.
I know there's going to be some of you that are skeptical. You're going to think, well, maybe Deb is pushing harder, easier at one time, or maybe Lily is trying harder, easier one time. But I'm not selling anything here. I'm just trying to share my knowledge that I've learned over the years with as many people as possible. So hopefully you'll believe me, and I hope so because you'll learn a really cool thing today.
So what just happened is that very brief stretch that you did basically took the fiber's ability to react to your nervous system's command to contract completely away. So 5 seconds of a stretch and you just disrupted this muscle's ability to work for you. What's even more interesting is that that disruption can last for up to 5 hours if you're lucky. So you definitely don't want to do that right before you go running.
I would love to hear your thoughts on this. Leave your comments below, no matter what they are. So that's why we don't stretch. So the question is, so what happens when a kid comes to you and they say, Coach, I'm tight. Coach, my calves are tight. They want to stretch their calves. The concept is this. A muscle is tight because it's overworking to compensate for other muscles that aren't doing their job, right? So if you have tight quad, your quads are tight because probably your glutes or somewhere in your hips, your hamstrings aren't doing their job. So it's overworking to take up more of the load. And if you take that one muscle that's working really good and put it to sleep, and you go try to run, now you have tons of instability in your body. So that's why our warm-up is going through like tightening muscles, muscle activation, isometric contractions, and doing things that are slow and controlled, because the same thing that you saw You would lose that by swinging muscles, foam rolling, mashing muscles, same thing. All that stuff we save for after, if we even do it at all. Okay?
Let's say including track meets. Including the track meet, do you think that
Oh, heck
it's
yeah.
not necessary?
I know it's super popular to see a kid
Yeah.
rolling their leg out. I look at that and go, good, we're gonna be good. It's super common, obviously it's super common. Now, in theory, if you knew how to reactivate these muscles, because she fixed Lily within seconds. And how she does it is she just goes to the origin of that muscle and she just works on it like that, and it goes to the insertion of the muscle and works on it, and her strength is back, just like that. It's like magic. It's freaky. But so if you were to stretch, you could go through like some isometric contractions and get it up quicker than 5 hours. You know, you might almost get it instantly. You know, so.
How about for after a hard practice? So the cool down part, would you stretch then or not?
I honestly never have my athletes stretch. But if they want to themselves at the end of practice stretch, I wasn't like a Nazi about it. I was just not telling them to stretch. But at the beginning, no, stop that. you know, what would I do? Well, let's do this instead. You know, my hurdlers, if they ever had tight hamstrings, it was like, okay, let's go up, let's extend, and let's go down, right? I've said this in a few sessions this weekend. So this works because this muscle's firing, this muscle's firing when you extend, so it makes this want to relax, right? It's different than you just stretching it and nothing has made it fire, opposing it. Just gravity, or somebody stretching you, or a fence or a wall or something. So, yeah. So we think about it as, plus when we go through, I don't even talk about it in this session, but I've talked about it in other sessions. We go through mobility circles with our ankles and our hips, and all that stuff is really good to tell your brain, okay, their body's good, and it just relaxes, and all of a sudden you have good range of motion just by going through circles. Yeah.
And you guys I'm sorry, do you have all those videos on your, like, on how to do your warm-up routines and stuff like that, or is that?
My warm-up routine is not on my website. My warm-up routine is part of my hurdle success system, but I will tell you what I will do. If you guys want to email me, I will send you a link to my warm-up routine. Okay? So, let me see if I got my video here. Here it is. It's very simple. acemethodcoaching@gmail.com. You bet. Let me make that bigger.
I got a
Yes.
feeling like they,
Sorry.
go ahead.
Yeah.
Yeah, Sandra.
For like back with the stretching stuff, like kicking out, swinging out, say on a fence, putting on a wall, is that giving you that same type
Same
of
thing. In fact, I have another video where Lily, we did it the same. She was doing this thing,
Right.
tested it, same thing.
Really?
Yeah. Yeah.
And it is very interesting because I mean you can see high profile athletes
Yeah.
when you go to the track
I know.
meets doing it. I
I
mean,
know.
and this is how kids learn. I mean, you
I know.
any person you'll feel. Oh well, I mean, I have this
Trust me,
athlete doing it.
I get abuse on YouTube from people, and I don't know what to tell you. I mean, you saw the video. I was there. I've had it done to me too, and I know Deb very, very well. It's not fake. It's crazy. So what you do with it is up to you. But I'm giving you some truth here. How you decide to use it is up to you. But you're right. I would bet some of the best athletes in the world are doing stuff like that, but I don't know. I don't know what to tell you. I really don't.
Now, another thing that you put the whole week, the whole practice for the week, and you put like, I said it was track and weight room and things like that. Any experience or any idea that you have about, like, if you have a sprinter, I mean, I know that you talk a lot about hurdles and things like that, that the weight training is supposed to be before the track practice,
Oh, okay.
or vice versa,
Well,
or how that works?
Just like you would want to do your technical stuff before your conditioning, because you don't want to be fatigued when you do it.
Mm-hmm.
You don't want to do your strength training first and then go run, because you can't run properly. You have a bad workout and fatigue, so you always do your strength training after, or on a different day. Yeah.
So how does the whole stretch losing, I mean, when you lift, it's, in essence, it's a stretch. Yes or no?
Well, I mean, if I go like this, I'm not feeling a stretch. Do you know what I mean? I mean, yes, this is an eccentric contraction and this muscle is lengthening, but it's not the same as if you were to take my arm and pull it back and I really feel a stretch here. Like when you feel a stretch, that's a stretch. Just lengthening is not a stretch.
So if you're using proper lifting
Yeah.
techniques.
Mhm. Yeah. Okay. Any other questions? We have officially wrapped up this class. Thank you. Thank you.